Hi, I'm Martha Beck.
And I'm Rowan Mangan. This is another episode of Bewildered, the podcast for people trying to figure it out.
So, Rowie, what today are you trying to figure out?
Well, Marty, as you know, we have a daughter.
What?
I meant to tell you.
Are you sure she's mine?
And other lesbian jokes. And I am trying to figure out, what's her universal worldview? Because I think you would agree that Lila is endowed with the gift of mischief.
I would say, yeah.
She's quite aware of her capacity to do mischief and quite delighted by it.
Yes, she's a regular Loki.
She's a little Loki. She's a little Loki.
Look it up.
So I try to understand her moral universe, the way that she's created it.
Moral is a strong word.
Yeah, her amoral universe. And so what the best I can figure out is that she thinks that all mischief can be undone through the
Yes.
shouting of two words.
Uh,
And these are magical words
yes.
that she uses to undo whatever went before and clean slate. So,
Yes.
for instance, some of the things that our daughter does, I mean, it's all the obvious stuff. It's like she makes a beeline for the things we need her to not have, hot
Yeah.
drinks,
Trying to drink out of the
alcoholic
toilet.
drinks, like all kinds of things. And she runs to them, and then the other thing is that grill from the floor. There's like an air conditioning
Yeah.
grill.
It's like the air vent cover.
Yes.
So there's a big hole in the floor and it's got this sharp metal vent on it. And weirdly, it's not affixed.
It's not. And she's taken to just grabbing those and wielding them. I
Oh, and
think
they're sharp and they're deadly.
they are. And you mentioned her preternatural strength,
Oh
physical
my
strength
God, that
another
child is
time.
strong.
And so she pulls these things up and she kind of totters around the room with them. She tottered straight into you with one and nearly did you
She
damage.
she drew blood
Did she?
and she was yelling, "Heavy, sharp." Like,
show, Muffy. Show. She likes showing things at the moment. But anyway, so she does those things. She knows they're bad. She takes delight. She waits until we notice that she's got them. And at that moment, she speaks the magic words.
mhm.
Good girl.
And that's true, she
Good
does.
girl. Which is a phrase that I think we've talked about. We're trying not to use with her anymore, but
Right.
she's got it deeply embedded as, to me, it's the equivalent of calling the president and asking for a pardon,
Definitely.
So yeah, it's just like, good girl. It's like a prayer. It's like a wish. It's like a spell.
It's like magic, yeah.
Good girl.
Yeah, it's
And then
preemptive.
nothing's wrong anymore.
That's right.
But it doesn't really work that way.
No, I can't count the times I've caught her. Well, not caught her. She wants my attention, edging with her hand, reaching toward an electrical outlet.
Oh my God.
And she gets closer and closer and watches you to see if, and then she screams, "Good girl."
Good girl.
But it's preemptive. It's like somebody going into a convenience store with a gun and then calling the police and turning himself in and then robbing the store and running away. It's not exactly logical, but there is some whiff of ethics to it.
Yeah. She's got her ways, our little Lila. So what about you, Maddie? What are you trying to figure out?
Oh, yeah. Well, I have found a most wonderful new app for the phone.
Oh boy.
My kid, not Lila, but Kit, showed it to me. It's called Seek. You go outside and you put your camera on anything, plant, bug, whatever, and it will tell you what it is. And I came in, I said, I think we have termites because I found this little pile of sawdust.
Uh-huh.
And they leave these little piles. So I went out and I used the Seek app. Immediately, it told me the real identity of this thing, which has been obsessing me ever since.
Not termites then.
It is called,
Uh-oh.
and this is the truth. This is literally true. Dog vomit slime mold.
Dog vomit slime mold.
Yes.
4 more disgusting words cannot be spoken in the English language. When you put them up against each other,
Yeah.
each word gets, what's the word I'm looking for? Exponentially
Yes.
more disgusting.
Well, it got worse because I came into the house and I'm like, I can't believe this is something really called dog vomit slime mold. So I Googled it. And the first thing that came up was a gardening site and it said, caring for dog vomit slime mold. And I was like,
Caring for it.
and then it said, you don't have to take care of it. You can't get rid of it. It's just out there when it rains. But then it's like I wrote 2 memoirs. One was called Expecting Adam. One was called Leaving the Saints because they like you to start with that ing. So I thought, caring for dog vomit slime mold, a memoir.
Oh, no.
And I started, like, I wake up at night and this Victorian era mini series is playing out between a woman who cares for a dog vomit slime mold
Ugh.
and him.
Oh, no.
And they can't be together because someone in her position, her family would not be into it, you know? And they're like, oh, Mr. Slime Mold. No, call me dog vomit.
Oh.
I gain endless joy from this.
I actually had to forbid you from saying those words. I mean, I'm letting it go now, but I had to forbid you, didn't I, in the house?
Yeah,
Because it
you
was
are
making
looking a
me.
little green.
Ugh, it's not good.
Well, sometimes it's called witch's butter.
That seems lovely. Although I wouldn't want to have a slice of toast at the witch's house, if you know what I mean, knowing
Right.
its other name.
I've also heard that it's called troll cat vomit slime mold.
Troll.
So put troll
cat.
in there.
Cat. No, you didn't say
cat. Troll cat. Yes, troll cat vomit slime mold.
Wow.
Somebody's going to a lot of trouble. There's the whole, a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. No, it wouldn't.
You know, in France, they have like a ministry of naming things so that English, so
Yeah.
that they're French, they're properly
remember
French, and
this.
English doesn't take everything. Because like when
Right.
computer came out, French started calling it computer, and
Yeah.
then the ministry went, no, c'est l'ordinateur.
L'ordinateur.
And like that, I think we need one of those. I always thought it was a little bit French, but actually, it's what it is really good idea.
Yeah. So what would we rechristen my favorite new pet?
Bert.
You go out with your sea cat, pointed at this slime mold, which, by the way, is fascinating because it's the link between a unicellular organism or a multicellular organism. It works as unicellular until it forms, oh God, fruiting bodies that are multicellular.
Oh,
I know. Sorry, I was going to try to not geek out on this, but I cannot help it. So
We've just
instead
lost
of
our
whatever
whole
it's
audience.
called, it's simply Bert.
Bert.
People go, what is this that I can't get out of my garden? Bert.
Caring for Bert.
Caring
Love
for
it.
Bert. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Suddenly it's really, really moving, and I feel really bad about the fun I was making of it. Anyway,
dear. All right.
What to do with that delicious topic was part of what I was trying to figure out.
We'll be right back with more Bewildered. I have a favour to ask. You might not know this, but ratings and reviews are like gold in the podcasting universe. They get podcasts in front of more faces, more eyes, more ears, all the bits that you could have a podcast in front of. That's what they do. So it would help us enormously if you would consider going over to your favourite podcasting app, especially if it's Apple, and giving us a few stars, maybe even 5, maybe even 6. If you can find a way to hack the system, I wouldn't complain. And a review would also be wonderful. We read them all and love them. So thank you very much in advance. Let's just go out there and bewilder the world. Mwah.
But what are we really, really trying to figure out seriously for the folks at home?
So we recently brought down to our dungeon here our very good friend Liz Gilbert, and she appeared on our podcast, and we had such a great conversation with her, and I wanted to pick one of the threads up and talk about it a little bit more with you, because what we were talking to Liz about was basically like, how far will you let your body and mind and soul degrade before you'll accept that you're like on the wrong path in some way in your life. And Marty, you have a philosophy around this that you call cave early. And
Yes.
I think it is very helpful for the peeps getting the cultural messages. Could you please explain cave early?
Yeah. Cave early means when you notice that something isn't good for you, give up, stop, fall down in your tracks, lie flat on the floor until the urge goes away. I've heard that before. Like sometimes I get a really strong urge to just forge ahead and work, but if I lie down for long enough, it goes away. That's kind of the cave early philosophy. It's like if you're a camel and you've got a lot of straw on, like how many straws ahead of that last straw do you figure this is getting strenuous until the last straw snaps your spine? Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And it makes me think of that thing that our personal messiah, Oprah Winfrey, said once. Was it her or was it someone else? Oh,
How can I know?
about
You haven't said what
it's
it
it
is.
will tell you in a message and then it will tell you in a what's that?
Yes. First, it's a whisper. I'm like, you might want to worry about this. Then it's a
Yeah.
little message. Hello, hello. Seriously, this is a problem. Then it's a lesson. Oh, now something went wrong and you should learn from that. Then it's a problem. Oh boy, this is keeps happening. And then it's a catastrophe.
Mm.
Yeah, it will destroy you.
That's the straw that actually breaks the camel's back.
Yeah.
But ourselves or whatever, however you want to kind of put it together, something in us is trying to tell us nicely before
Yeah.
it tells us in a
Yeah.
harder way.
Yeah. It's sort of edging up to the outlet going, go girl.
Go, go,
The
go,
moment you
go.
hear go girl, you know something bad is going to happen. Like cave right then, cave
Right,
early. Yeah.
right.
So, and it generalizes to things like, it's been record heat all summer in the Northern Hemisphere. How far do we have to go toward catastrophic, like apocalyptic climate change before we go, yeah, we might want to quit some things? Yeah.
Yeah. The inconvenient truth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that is an inconvenient truth, but I can tolerate it.
But
Let's go eat lunch.
it's inconvenient, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Nothing is worse than inconvenience in this culture. Literally death before inconvenience. That's what we're living.
Yeah. And that's specifically the whole weird culture. I always think there are a million cultures within cultures, but our sort of dominant, and we're in America right now. It is really true. Death before inconvenience. Like it has to be like you have to be able to do it with a remote from your couch, or it is just too complicated. We leave the inconvenient things to other people.
Yeah, yeah, we do. Some of our listeners will remember me holding forth at great length about cup holders once
Oh,
on
yes.
this topic.
God forbid you should not have a place to put 19 cups at once.
I know, right? So what does the culture say about this idea of cave early?
Well, don't. It
Don't.
says, don't cave early. Don't you
Mm.
ever cave. No, no. It's all about attachment and hanging on and, true grit.
Yeah. Don't give up.
Never.
Stay the course.
Yeah. Never, never, never give up. That great Winston Churchill speech, which was, yeah, I take it well placed, but where he says, we will never give up. We will fight on the beaches. We will fight in the streets. Only when you listen to him talking, he's so negative charisma. He's like, we will fight on the beaches. We will fight on the streets. We will never, never, never give up.
Yeah, I think probably the situation where someone wants to invade your country with guns and tanks and stuff, that's probably not a good cave early situation.
Yeah, stipulated. And that's
Let's
why
not apply it to that.
that's why it's become so dominant for us, because we want to win at all costs. And when the chips are really down, it is good to have grit and perseverance and all
That's
that. But
right.
the problem is it overgeneralizes to every single thing we try to do. So,
And it's amazing how powerful those messages are, like you've made your decision, now stick to it no
Yep.
matter what. No matter what, no matter what evidence you get that neither, like it might have been right then, but even if you get evidence that it's wrong now, don't change course.
never.
No matter what changes in the world around you, don't ever reconsider that decision that you've made.
Oh, yes. And for God's sake, if you're running for office, never learn anything, because if you decide, you thought, that cigars were good for you, and then it turns out you read a bunch of research and you found out cigars are not good for people, and you've changed your mind about that. Maybe letting people have AK-47s in an elementary school, maybe that's not a good idea. I used to be pro, but now I'm con. And if you say, guess what, I've changed my mind, You are a flip-flopper.
Oh god, flip
Don't
flop.
ever flip-flop.
So you can see how, like, like, I bet everyone can resonate with how powerful these messages are around us and
We've
how
all heard it,
deep
yeah.
they kind of burrow into our minds. And I was thinking about it because I have a friend right now who's potentially gonna be leaving her marriage,
Mhm.
and she literally told me she can hear the voices of the culture in her head saying
Hmm.
these exact things. And it's so interesting how no matter how intelligent or empowered or, financially, like, I feel like relationships are such a
Yeah.
strong way that the culture uses these
Yeah.
sorts of messages.
Oh my gosh, I cannot count the number of clients I've had over the years who are like, "Oh, I can't leave this job or this marriage or this whatever, even though it's killing me." And I had one woman who said she knew her job was giving her cancer. So she took a leave. She had cancer, so she took a leave for a year and got all her chemo, got all healthy. And then she went in to quit. And she said, "I know if I go back, I'll get cancer again." So she went back and then she came to see me and she's like, "Yeah, they pointed out to me that I was a quitter. So I'm back in." And she died of cancer
Oh
2 years later.
my
And it's
god.
I have you ever heard that addiction is persistent repetition of a behavior despite negative consequences? That's one definition.
Addiction is persistent repetition of a behavior despite negative consequences. So
Right.
bad things happen to you when you do it, but you keep doing it, and that's
Yes.
addiction.
And
Oh,
that's what
that's
addiction
quite
is. And what we're basically hearing is no matter how you feel, stick with whatever you're doing. So that is be addicted, adopt an addiction, adopt many addictions as long as they're approved, like
mm,
culture approved things, like a marriage or a job, and stay in there no matter what harm befalls you there. And may I say also that that this quitter never quit thing was established in a culture where people the average life expectancy was like 45.
mhm,
So you weren't gonna have to stick with it all that long.
mm, mm. Yeah.
But, yeah, right now, we're living longer and we're sticking in there. We're not caving. We won't cave because we did it before, so we have to do it again and again.
And it's almost like the messaging of the culture works with our own psychology to,
Yeah.
because I feel like part of the struggle. So take my friend, right, with her marriage. It's like part of the struggle is, if I leave
Mhm.
now, if I
Mhm.
stop this now, if I quit this now, then it means that I've been on the wrong path all along, because it's either wrong or right. It's one or to other,
Yeah.
And so the culture's voice makes that the stakes. The stakes are, if you leave something that's wrong for you, you are acknowledging that the last 20 years of your life were wrong
Yep.
or had no meaning or had no value.
Yeah. And you're stupid and you made the wrong decision and then you stayed with the wrong decision. So just keep staying because then it looks like the right decision. It's this
Because sorry.
obsession with being right in our
Yeah.
culture.
Yeah, and this absolute insistence that nothing must ever change.
Yeah.
Nothing, it's straight lines. It's not wobbly, wavy lines. It's we always say nature moves
Yeah.
and changes and grows, and culture is like, that can't be.
Right. It's this weird resistance to impermanence, which is, the acceptance of impermanence and change is such a big part of so many Asian traditions. But in the West, it's like, no. I mean, I could go into a long disquisition about Calvinism right now, but I'm not going to
I
because
think
I am a compassionate woman.
I think our listeners might have heard your Calvinism bit before.
Good girl. Good girl. Oh, Lord. So, yeah, I know we've both done this before. Like, I used to, oh my God, through my whole 20s, 30s, and even into my 40s, I insisted on working harder and harder and sleeping less and less
Mm.
as my body totally disintegrated. And I mean, I made little adaptations, but if I had any energy, it was immediately spent trying to do something that would be reputable and productive. And
You're still a little bit like that, to be honest.
so are you. Good girl.
You are.
Good girl. Anyway, it was a complete compulsion, and I didn't wanna be perceived as having been a quitter in any area of life, right? Which meant I took on every role I could and tried to never let any of them go.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I was just thinking now you may not push yourself that hard, but I think that there are sometimes you'll you'll do what your body needs to do. You'll
Yeah.
do the thing that's in integrity, but you can sometimes perseverate or feel guilty
Oh,
about
yes.
that, and I just think it's so fascinating because you've done more work on yourself than anyone else I've ever met,
Mhm.
and yet this little
Yeah.
kernel of don't stop, don't ever stop
Yeah.
is crazy strong even in you.
Oh, yeah, and people send me like, I get emails and gifts and stuff from people I don't even know who are like, "Please come to my house in Uzbekistan and work with my mother who's ailing," and I'm like, "Oh, crap. Now I have to go to
Guess I'm going to
Uzbekistan.
Uzbekistan.
Oh, guys, we gotta because
Yeah,
someone asked me and they want me to hang in, and yeah, if I'm gonna be a self-help person, I better do everything everywhere. Yeah, it's crazy.
yeah,
It's insane.
and you really, like, ran yourself into properly poor health doing
Yeah, I
that.
mean, I did, not for a long time. I haven't
Yeah,
had an all-nighter for, like, a week. No, but I used to do several a month
yeah,
for years.
of just working all night.
Horribly bad for you. Never ever do that. Cave, people, cave. What
Yes.
about you, Rowie?
Well, it occurs to me, so for you, you worked and worked and wouldn't stop and wouldn't quit,
Mhm.
and your body started to
Yes, it
break
totally
down.
unraveled.
Yeah. And so for me, I was thinking about a time that I was in a relationship with someone that it wasn't a good call.
Mm,
And I'm kind of stuck on relationships with this because I think I see it being so pernicious in this.
mm,
And it was different for my friend because it wasn't a well, whatever. It wasn't a super duper long-term relationship,
mhm.
and, but I sort of thought, "Oh, well, I found this person, this'll do, like, I can settle, I can make this work, and I think I could live with this long term."
Always a good reason to commit
Always,
for the rest of your life. I think
right?
I could get used to
Yeah. And what happened to me was that, like, so one of my sort of signals is anxiety, like physical
it.
anxiety symptoms get
Mm.
really turned up. And it was actually quite funny because I ended up being in this like long, week long or weeks long state of like almost like panic attack level
I thought
anxiety.
I thought you were gonna say I was in a weeks-long relationship. I was like, "That's not that bad." Okay, so weeks-long anxiety, that is bad.
and And I finally was just like, "All right, I'm listening." It came as a strong enough, signal that I could, finally hear it, and I was like, "Okay, the relationship's wrong." And I was trying to explain it to the person that I was with, who thought that the problem was I was having some anxiety and needed some time out, just
Mm,
some time to. And so there was this whole thing of like, "Oh, you poor thing." And I guess maybe I let that continue to be the perception because what it really was it's not me, it's you. And
mm.
I didn't really want to do that, but like there was like a moment. Oh, I probably shouldn't. Oh well,
Go
I'm
for
going
it.
to.
They won't be
Where
listening.
we were doing the like 3 or 4 weeks post breakup, like here's your shampoo and stuff. You know
Oh,
that awkward
ow.
coffee where it's like, oh, here's your shampoo and your makeup and stuff. And that the person thought that I was gonna get
Come
back
back?
together with them now
Okay.
because I was feeling better, and I was like,
Uh-huh.
"No, I'm feeling better because 'cause I'm not with you."
'Cause
Like,
I'm nowhere near you, do
yeah, and I just anyway, so it was interesting to see like, I don't I often, kind of boast about not having too many of these cultural things in deep, but man, I think, like, especially because being single, it's kind of a bummer,
Mm,
and, being in a relationship makes your ego feel like,
mm.
"Yeah, somebody likes me enough."
And may I say that in almost all cultures, especially for women, there's this thing of if you're not married at 18 or whatever, like In one Asian country, they say a 25-year-old woman who's not married is like a Christmas cake. Nobody wanted to eat it, and it just lies around getting stale. That's a really common sort of trope in a lot of cultures, that women are supposed to get into relationships and stay there no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I think it's so easy to let yourself go a long way down a track because of something or other that
Yeah,
that we're buying into with
whatever.
consensus. Yeah.
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 So,
So how do we come to our senses, Marty?
interesting you should ask, because I'm dying to tell you after a break.
So Marty,
Yes.
we're trying to figure this out.
Mhm.
Stay the course, cave early.
Mhm.
It's hard, right?
Hard to know.
And I think one of the reasons that it's hard to figure it out is that there's a kind of logical loop built
Mhm.
into this one. This is my theory.
Mm.
And you can see it with my friend and her marriage because the voice of culture is saying to her, if this is wrong for you now,
Mhm.
if you're going to quit, not stay the course, that means that it was never right.
Mhm.
It means that the 20 years of your marriage have no meaning,
Yeah. Mm.
right? That there was
Yes.
no value to that because it was either always right or it was always going to be
Right.
wrong. And that's where my friend is snagged because she can't get out of that loop of, if I leave, it means my children and their
Ah,
lives and their experience doesn't have meaning. Like there's just
right.
so much about the meaning of
Yep.
experiences that we want to leave.
Value and meaning. Those are the two
Right.
things. The culture says if you quit, it retroactively voids any kind of meaning or value uh, that is attached to the experience you just had,
Right.
which may have been your whole life. So, of course, we're like, gee, I don't want to invalidate everything I've ever done. But if you look at nature, it doesn't need persistence to value something.
Right.
And not that it does anything really deliberately. Nature's not making value judgments like that. But that's just the point. It is inherently valuable. Every experience is inherently valuable
And meaningful.
and meaningful, right? Like that's what Viktor Frankl said after surviving Auschwitz, that it was, in the most horrible circumstances, he was still able to salvage that part of his life was still in some way not good. I mean, but for him, internally good, because he derived so much meaning from it. He learned so much. So learning and the treasure of experience, those are nature's realities. And you don't have to say, okay, I'll obey the culture and do everything persistently forever. And you don't have to say, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole because it would be stupid. You can, or you don't have to say, I failed because I quit and that means that I never did anything right. These are both these extremes. And
Mhm.
nature just says experience is meaningful, inherently meaningful, as long as you can see it that way. And learning to see it that way, well, is called learning. Like you
Mm.
come out of an experience, it's horrible. Your friend is looking at her marriage. It's really bad right now. And instead of saying, okay, did I fail forever or will I stay and validate myself forever? You say, this was a good experience that became horrible. Where can I find meaning? Where can I find learning? And that is value.
So, if we accept the premise that all experience has value and meaning,
Hmm.
that finding that is part of what we're here to do,
Right?
then I think it's kind of interesting to think about the warning signs that we're actually given because our
Mm,
bodies are our access to nature, right?
yeah.
Our brains are our access to culture. I mean, to vastly oversimplify. And our bodies are our access to our own true nature, which
Yeah.
is what we're trying to
Yeah.
discover here by getting bewildered. So, I find that I can look back, like my experience in that relationship, the anxiety, the physical anxiety, that's a big one for me. I
Hmm.
think we all have different warning signs,
Right.
right? And so, the other one for me is always sort of autoimmune stuff.
Yeah.
So I get chronic fatigue syndrome flare ups when I'm starting to do the wrong thing. And so it's like learning to recognize them again, not as failure. Like, so for me, chronic fatigue is such a bitch because it makes me stop.
Yep, it's like,
It makes me quit.
I will bring you down. You think you're gonna persist? Watch this.
Right.
Good girl.
It's very literal, and, like, it had to deal with me in quite a literal way because I can be so stupid.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so, like, what are your warning signs that you get?
Well, I went to the absolute extreme of physical decomposition too, with like 5 autoimmune illnesses that
Yeah.
were supposed to progress and kill me, because that's what they usually do to people. But they didn't kill me because I caved.
Right.
And I found that the more I caved when anything bothered me at all, the healthier I got and recovered, or at least have no symptoms from diseases that supposedly were progressive and incurable.
Mhm.
So now I am like a big fan of the cave early. And the first thing before you start to hurt physically, I think this is true for everyone, you start to feel a bad mood. So,
Right, so that's the whisper maybe.
yeah, I mean, you get symptoms of anxiety. So that's like a fear creeps into your mood.
Right,
I
yeah.
can get the fight part of the fight or flight. So I start to get angry.
Mm.
And I have trouble like being courteous to people, as so many others have noted.
You flew
um,
all the way to Uzbekistan and insulted the mother.
I was so resentful by the time I got there. So the first thing is mood, and I try to
Mhm.
cave when the mood goes sour.
Right,
And
right.
and then if I don't do that for some reason, oh, I can trust illness and injury to just climb right on
Pain,
board.
physical pain. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Still, I mean, it's always waiting off stage going, "Hello," you know?
If anyone's really super duper interested in this, and you should be, in Marty's latest book, The Way of Integrity, she talks about these kinds of
Right.
symptoms. She calls them the Darkwood of Error syndrome, and using Dante. And so, yeah, check it out because it's actually really fascinating the ways that our nature is trying to tell us,
Oh,
hey,
thank you.
hello.
Nature and Dante. Geek out. Yeah, so, bad moods, bad physical symptoms, then trouble in relationships. Like things start to go downhill. You don't feel connected to anyone because you're not connected to yourself. And then
Mm,
anything you're trying to do to make your life go forward starts to fail.
right.
It's like set your watch by it.
Wow.
And most people say at that point, this is when quitters never win and winners never quit. I'm
Mm,
miserable emotionally. I'm miserable physically. My relationships are crap right now and I can't work or create or whatever I want to do.
when the going gets tough.
The tough get going.
Yeah.
Yeah. And both you and I have ended up like lying prone for weeks because we tried to do this the way we were taught. We're good
Yeah.
girls.
Good girl.
Not anymore.
Bad girl.
But that's your nature. That's
Mhm.
your biofeedback system saying, time to cave.
And this thing about learning, that moving is learning,
Mm.
and learning to find meaning and all of that sort of thing. And you said something so cool about this when you were on Glennon Doyle's podcast. And I
Aw.
would love you about the learning process and staying the course.
Yeah, she said, how do I be in my integrity? Because she said she was horrified that she had sat her kids down when one of their friends' parents were getting divorced and they were worried about it. And she sat them down and said, one thing I can guarantee you, mommy and daddy will never get divorced. And she said, then I got divorced. Like I was so out of my integrity. And I was like, no, you're not. That's the retroactive thing kicking in.
Right.
I should have known. It has to be consistent throughout all time in history.
Or not, I should have known, but because I said that,
I should
I
have
no
stayed.
longer can leave.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And this is what I said to her. Everybody says things that they believe to be true in the moment and really believe and intend to be true. I will never quit this job, whatever. And then situations change. People change. The world changes. And nature says, to quote Liz Gilbert, it is time for something that was beautiful to give way to something else that is beautiful. That's how nature always works. And then you sit your kids down again and say, you know what? I thought I was telling the truth. I really did. I really believed that. And then I got more information. And now I think something different. And that's called learning.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry if I set you up.
Mm-hmm.
But we all get to learn. And that right there is nature's takeaway. We all get to learn.
And that's got to be a big learning for the kid as well about the reality of being in one of these, bodies and one of these brains.
Yeah.
And,
It's gonna happen to them too.
yeah.
Not necessarily with their marriage, but with something. With nature, with the nature of being a human comes continuous change. And trying to hang on despite that is the key to all suffering. Just keep grasping something that you need to cave into. Wait, that sounded wrong. Just keep grasping when nature's telling you to cave.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you will understand what suffering looks like.
Yeah. So cave early,
Cave
everyone.
early, everyone. And
And
stay wild.
We hope you're enjoying Bewildered. If you're in the USA and want to be notified when a new episode comes out, text the word WILD to 570-873-0144. We're also on Instagram. Our handle is Bewildered Podcast. You can follow us to get updates, hear funny snippets and outtakes, and chat with other fans of the show. Bewildered is produced by Scott Forster with support from the brilliant team at MBI. And remember, if you're having fun, please rate and review. And stay wild.